All right, on this installment of Liberty Music, we got a great artist on here from the group Said the Whale. They've got some shows coming up December 6th, 7th, as well as the 8th and the 14th, playing in Montreal, Ottawa, Oshawa, and Toronto, respectively. Going to have them coming through my neck of the woods in Oshawa on the 8th at Oshawa Music Hall, and I'm talking to guitarist and vocalist Tyler Bancroft. How's it going there, man?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing great, and yeah, it seems like you guys are firing on all cylinders. I also noticed though that you guys were, celebrating things with Islands Disappear, and just with it being 10 years ago, and then putting out the reissue. I'm kind of wondering what was that process like, just revisiting some of those tunes in that way.
Felt kind of natural just because the album Cascadia sort of harkens back to that kind of vibe with a lot of natural references and sonically it's kind of cut from the same cloth. So it's yeah, it felt really natural to be talking about that record and those songs are requested a lot at our shows. Um, and then we recently obtained the rights back to that record because it's been 10 years since it came out and that's how long the deal was. So we own the record and we did a reissue on beautiful translucent pink vinyl.
So it was like a very organic thing to kind of like get back to and just check out the tunes or whatever. I mean, I guess like you said, they're pretty key fixtures in the live show anyway. But it wasn't like a like. Did you interpret the record differently looking back on it with the reissue as opposed to like when the record itself was being conceived, or not so much that dynamic at play?
I wouldn't say we put that much thought into it. I mean, I think that as time passes, you become more appreciative, I guess, of your past work and sort of the way that it influences people. I think there's sort of like a natural tendency to kind of like it's old, like who cares? But that record is kind of like the first record that a lot of people heard from us. So that's the reason why I think a lot of those songs get requested because that's sort of like the first record that people fell in love with for our band.
Yeah, absolutely. And I also noticed a post on your Instagram account, I believe it was, where it said, incredible that 12 years into our career, we're having our best shows in some of these cities. And you said you're feeling like a fine wine. What do you credit to, that sort of vitality that still exists now, whereby you guys are, putting on some of your best shows? Like, what do you credit to that? Is it anything in particular, you think?
Honestly, I think it's just hard work. We've been at it for so long. We of course we take our fair share of time off and time in between records just because there's only so much you can do in Canada and we're primarily Canadian band. But when it's time to work, we work and we do our butts off and we write as much new music as we can and we always try and come up with creative things to release like cookbooks and great merch and yeah, it's just a hustle. I think that's why things keep building for us. And it is a slow build. It's always been a slow build for us. We've never really had like a big break or any sort of stroke of luck. It's just been hard work.
Yeah, exactly. Just the consistency. And that reflects in the discography as well, just all the different projects you guys put out. So I'm kind of curious to that point. Does each record you put out in a way inform the next one? Like, is there like an incremental sort of like pattern of learning across the records at all? Or is each kind of a unique snapshot in time?
I would go with more of sort of a snapshot of time. I think there are certain things that do influence the next record. The reason why this record, Cascadia, ended up as such like an organic kind of acoustic record is because the record was very synthesized. So the point of that record was to be a sonic experiment with a lot of effects and synths and kind of programmed drums, and we wanted to do something completely different for that record. And then for this record, it was a bounce back to the complete opposite side of the pendulum swing. So in that way, yes, the records influence each other, but then at the same time, the songs we're writing are generally sort of a snapshot of where we're at in life.
Yeah, and I guess the song Mother kind of alludes to that as well from the project Hawaii you guys put out, in as far as like things have changed 100 degrees. I'm sure that means more beyond just like, sonic considerations. Like it seems like a lot has changed in the personal lives of all those in the band as well.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like over the course of 12 years, how could they not? We're growing people and things change and our music reflects it.
Yeah, absolutely. And Quite an interesting experience, though. I think it's cool that it kind of started in that, 2007, like couple high school pals hanging out and just like brainstorming things, and then just see kind of what it's turned into now.
Yeah, it's awesome, and I mean we feel very fortunate to be able to do what we do, but then not too fortunate because, like I said, it's a product of a lot of hard work. It's been our life work.
Yeah, absolutely. And it seems like you guys very much pay it forward too. Like I saw you guys playing at Argyle Secondary there, and you were talking about how it was fun to like fantasize about Brian Adams roaming the halls and stuff like that. But I think it's cool that you guys like that wasn't just like an isolated sort of incident. Like you guys were doing that sort of high school tour, like really put out the opportunity to young fans to like put out the invitation, have you guys come through. What was that sort of experience like? Because I think that's like a pay it forward kind of sweet thing, and then also the donation aspect that you guys put out there too.
Yeah, I mean that was incredibly rewarding. We've been a part of the Vancouver music scene for so long, and I've always wanted to sort of figure out a way to give back in a way that felt right for us, and so that just sort of presented itself, and we decided 10 years ago we had done this high school busking tour in support of Music Counts. And Music Counts is an amazing organization, but it is more of like a central funding body that's located in Ontario, and we wanted to make sure that the schools that we were going to were actually going to be the recipients of the funds. So we decided to sort of take that idea and just grab it by the horns a little, and just make it a little more our own. And so all the money was going right to the schools that we played at. And it just felt really good to going into schools, and their music programs are going to be benefiting from our presence, and as well, hopefully sort of presenting the idea of a career in the arts to students in Vancouver who are kind of inundated with like think pieces about housing costs and the sort of like financial crisis in Vancouver, I think a lot of that can be misinterpreted by kids as a requirement to have a career that is going to make them $100,000 plus a year, where I don't think that's the correct interpretation. I think that there's still space for artists, and it just requires a little more work than it used to.
Yeah, I get what you mean. That kind of rhetoric, I think, could like really create this like protectionist kind of thing almost, where it like strong arms these like young kids into like, oh, I need to settle into this career where I'm gonna make X amount of dollars, but maybe not have any level of fulfillment from it, just as a means of, like I said, protecting oneself.
Totally, yeah. And I mean, if you happen to find yourself in a career where you're making a ton of money and you're fulfilled, that's great. Like this, it's not a shot against people who settle into careers that are stable and make money and allow them to be comfortable. It's just, it's the whole other side of it where that isn't a requirement to be happy and can be fulfilled, and you can get by and have a life and be in the arts.
Yeah, exactly. Just a matter of like following your passion, but you guys have paid it forward in different ways like that too. Like I saw your involvement with your CBC music class and stuff, and like could win up to 5,000 in new instruments, and I think that's a great initiative as well. I mean, could inspire a lot of musicians of the next generation.
Totally, and plus it's just incredible to see like high school kids playing your song.
Yeah, that must be an interesting sort of thing too, to have like, I mean, obviously you guys have your set of influences and stuff like that, but it must also be like a strange yet probably exhilarating dynamic to have yourself as an influence for like that generation of musicians coming up.
Oh yeah, that's a big trip. That's hard. It's hard to even like reconcile that in my brain.
Yeah, but speaking of like different gigs you guys have played, like I saw you were on the same bill as the Tragically Hip years ago, but also you guys have played some gigs with Blue Rodeo in the past. Are there any particular gigs that like really, stand out in any kind of way, or is it just like each show is like a party and is an enjoyable communal experience in its own way?
I think that's sort of what it is. It's getting to play with other Canadian bands is always an awesome experience because it's just sort of another little social group that you get to be a part of, and you're generally always welcomed into it. Two guys from Winter Sleep were at our show last night, and hung out with them a little bit. Canada's a pretty incredible music community. You end up going to international festivals like South by Southwest or Reeperbahn, and it's sort of like an inside joke that all the Canadians just end up hanging out together the whole time. And it's nice, and that from in our experience, that doesn't really exist in other countries.
Yeah, for sure. And speaking of interesting gigs, I also saw that as part of the Air Miles Stage Pass program, you guys were on that chartered yacht there and you got to do the private concert. What was an experience like that like? Because that's an interesting set of circumstances for a gig.
That was very cool. I mean, it was Air Miles who sort of was the corporate funding body behind our school tour, and so in conjunction with that, we did this private yacht thing, and it was hilarious. It's just like the fanciest thing ever, incredible food, an awesome time, like right up our alley. Go on a little boat cruise, and played a couple songs at the end of it. It was great.
Yeah, it must be a bit better than sitting in a van for up to 8 hours a day,
Oh yeah, just take a yacht everywhere.
eh? But yeah, I saw the quote where you were talking about how much time is spent with the actual touring and whatnot, like the actual act of being in the van, and kind of just described it as like you're surviving for those moments on stage. But are there any like memorable sort of intriguing moments like while you're actually like getting those road miles in? Like I guess like I always see it through the lens of like the Black Flag audiobook, like the whole get in the van sort of thing. Like are there any like sort of like memorable moments in that regard, or is the actual like in the van portion kind of just like an arduous necessary part of the process?
Yeah, I think like what you want it to be is not memorable because it's memorable when things go wrong, like when your van breaks
Fair.
down, or like yeah, something. Generally, it's like something bad happens to the van, or like somebody gets horribly sick and like has like, appendix surgery. Um, and we've had both of those things happen. We've had vans, so many vans break down, and that's sort of like a cliche part of touring. But yeah, what you want is the drive to be totally not memorable, so everything goes smoothly, everyone's in a fine mood, you arrive on time, and you play the show. That's the job.
Yeah, what was that experience like though? I mean, you alluded to it briefly there, but like it seems like a pretty troubling experience to say the least. Like you have this intense abdominal pain and then you got to have the appendix removed pretty much right away and then you're up there on stage playing just a few days later in a hospital gown. So what was that whole experience like? I imagine it was like pretty stressful, but probably like a big relief after the fact.
Well, it was incredible timing actually because we had actually just arrived home for a planned 5 days off because we weren't. It was on a tour with Mother Mother, and they had some U.S. dates, which we decided to do. Um, and yeah, I think my first night back, I started having abdominal pain. Went to the hospital, had appendicitis, got it yanked out, and I had 3 days at home to recover, and then went back out again to doctor's orders. Um, but yeah, pulled it off just because everybody kind of rallied around me, and I didn't have to lift anything, and that healing process was a little longer than it probably should have been as a result of overexerting myself, but it's worth it. I have no regrets.
Yeah, for sure. Glad you could come out of that, unscathed relatively. And like you said, the timing of it was, quite good, all things considered. But as a fellow guitarist, I'm kind of curious, like, if there's anything like in your rig that's like a go-to, like necessary sort of aspect of it. Like, 'cause I've talked to some musicians who like they'll have like kind of like a standard like pedal setup and certain amp heads just to like facilitate. They could go to like any local music store and get it in the event that it needs to be replaced, but also some people really revel in like the boutique kind of gear and certain things like that. So to that point, like what's your guitar rig like in that regard?
Pretty simple. A pedal board with maybe 6 or 7 pedals on it. Play a vintage Harmony Stratotone. That's my guitar of choice, and then just through a Fender Deluxe Reverb. So nothing super fancy to be honest, but it does the trick for me.
Is it just a byproduct of like this works for you and this is what I like, or is it a matter of like you want to, like I said, have that like functionality where like in the event that like you lose something on the road or whatever, you can just go to any like local Long and McQuaid and sort of procure it?
I mean, I certainly couldn't do that with my guitar. I think touring with a vintage guitar is risky because if it gets stolen or something happens to it, you're just kind of SOL. But
More so like the pedals and amp heads, I guess maybe.
pardon me.
I guess more so like the pedals and amp heads. Like, is it just like a matter of like you dig the tonality of them, or is it just the function of like it's easy to like maybe procure these in the event something happens? Obviously, not afforded with the guitars though.
Yeah, I mean, like they serve my tone well as I have sort of dialed in on how I like it to sound, and those are the ways that I can achieve those sounds. few years, but I've found the things that work for me that make it sound the way that I want it to sound, and that's sort of as far as I need to take it. My primary interest in music is songwriting, not particularly going down like gear rabbit holes. And I know that I know a ton of musicians who are huge gearheads and know way more than I do, but that's never been my bag, which is probably better for my personal finances because I don't find myself spending thousands of dollars on gear.
Yeah, exactly. I'm sure your wallet is quite appreciative of what you're into there, but I'm kind of wondering, like, what's the importance of Old Dirty Bike Shed to the progression of the band?
Well, that was right at the time. At the time, my first son was born. I converted. I had used to I did my office work and my music writing and stuff in the spare bedroom in our apartment. And then the baby was coming, and so I was losing my workspace to the nursery, and so I was able to turn the bike shed that was in the backyard of the house where my apartment is, and I now use that as my recording studio and workspace. And it's only like 30 feet from my back door. The baby monitor reaches, and it's enabled me to do a lot of home recording, which is awesome, and do a lot of kind of managing home as well.
Yeah, and then I also noticed you had that solar powered session at Ben's family cabin, and it had like the ambience of like the dishes getting done and stuff like that, but like people didn't know like record was pressed on that. So it sounds like it captures like a certain ambiance to it that maybe you couldn't have gotten in other facilities. So to that point, like how important is the recording space to like fully fleshing out the sonic identity of the next recording project?
I mean, that was just awesome. Getting to spend time in a place that's so beautiful and so relaxed. I think that maybe in a perfect world we could afford a big fancy studio of choice and get to spend a month there. But realistically, it's just not doesn't make sense in 2019 when you're really not profiting off of recorded music. And so it's sort of going back to more DIY. When possible, and also technology is advanced to the point where it's really not that hard to get great sounds, which is like a couple preamps and mics in a cabin. I think that's always been the case, but we're learning more about it, and it's a really appealing idea to be able to record anywhere and not spend your entire budget just on a room with good acoustics and stuff. And it actually it adds to the vibe of the record to have somebody crashing dish in the background, and yeah, it creates a sort of more experiential, I think.
Yeah, well, that DIY sort of ethos, it's not like a forsaking quality sort of thing. It's one of those deals where you just have like a much more comprehensive understanding of what you're supposed to do. So there's definitely utility to that. And to the point of like not doing things in an over the top fancy way or the compulsion to go that direction. I mean, like the video for Record Shop, for instance, I thought was great because I think a lot of people saw it and thought it was like this huge, fancy, like a lot of elements at play kind of a thing. But it was relatively like DIY and minimalist, all things considered. But the end product is astonishing, sort of deal.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt. But yeah, a lot of great shows coming up, and just really appreciate all the time, man. I'm curious though if there's anything maybe you'd like to add as kind of like a parting thought as we're wrapping things up here, though.
Oh man, no, those are very in-depth questions. I appreciate the thought that you put into that, and how much you paid attention to the recording and the history of our band. It means a lot.
Yeah, no, I mean, definitely a band that I've followed for years, no doubt. Like when I was talking about Islands Disappear, like there's a lot of tracks off there that were a regular part of my playlist and, maintained that sort of placement today. So really appreciate getting all the time, man. And people can check out Said the Whale December 6th in Montreal, December 7th in Ottawa, and also December 8th in Oshawa and the 14th in Toronto. All relevant details can be found on Said the Whale's social media. And again, just really appreciate all the time and insights. Tyler, hope you enjoy the rest of your day, man.
Yeah, man, I appreciate you taking the time as well.